Angela, welcome. It's so nice to meet you.
So great to be here. So happy that you had the opportunity to invite me and that I could come and join you on your show. I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we're here too. I'm glad that you found us and that this worked out. So, today you wanted to talk a little bit about grief.
Yeah, I want to talk a lot about grief.
Yeah, this is I don't think this is something that people are unfamiliar with one way or another in this world. I think that everybody's experiencing grief of some sort right now, whether it's from loved ones or from the destruction of the world all around us. Everywhere you look, they're replacing beautiful, lush habitats of panthers and cougars and gopher tortoises with Dutch brothers and other strip malls and highways and cookie cutter subdivisions. And there's just so much pain and anguish. So
hmm
tell me a little bit about grief that you work with and what's really present with you today on that.
Yeah, I'm a widow, and so I work with a lot of widows. But I also work with people who have lost children, um, and on the peripheral, people who have lost pets, people who have lost homes, jobs, um, any of that. Anytime you lose something or something changes and you can't go back, we have this process that we go through called grief.
Yeah, and so loss is the main characteristic of grief.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this is really good because I think that some people might say, well, I haven't lost a loved one,
Mhm.
or it's been so long since I've lost a loved one. But grief can be, yeah, you can grieve the loss of a position at work or the loss of, I won't go so far as to say that a pet could be any different from your most cherished loved one.
Absolutely.
Two
Yeah.
months ago, I lost my most cherished connection that I've ever had in my life. She's hanging up on the wall
Aw.
right next to me, right here. And that was, like I said, she was my most precious connection. And that pain was incredible. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the loss is the key characteristic of grief. Now, I oftentimes hear people say, I lost somebody 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And I work with people very frequently that are still holding on to that grief.
Mhm.
I'm curious from your perspective, why is it that some people carry grief much longer than others?
Well, I think, partly it's due to our circumstance. I mean, there's a lot of things that probably built up to that point at where you lost that loved one, and there's things that need to be reconciled, in that relationship that you lost, and so there's lots to it, but also it's the way that we look at it, and I can get more into this, but our thoughts really affect our emotions, and so our perspective on the loss is really important. And I think people get stuck in their cycling thoughts. The mind is really, really busy, and it's always trying to rewrite the story
Hmm.
of the past, right? And we can't do that. We know we can't do that. And yet it's relentless in trying to rewrite the story, but also to keep us safe going forward.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot to the mind, and not to say it's a bad thing, but I think we need to realize that our thoughts are there and that we do have control of our thoughts.
Okay, this is really good. So we got two things here that are really important. First is the perspective,
Yeah.
the way that we're making sense of the situation. And then we have our way of processing information, the way that we're taking in all the things that are happening there, making sense of it. These are those relentless thoughts, the really busy mind, the circular mind. And you said that the mind wants to rewrite the past.
Mhm.
So, and then you said very quickly, right after that, that the mind is trying to protect you. Okay. So, in this cycle of grief, let's start with this busy mind. I think that almost everybody can relate with this in some degree or another, unless they've gone through incredible practice, in which case they can really relate with the busy mind.
Yeah.
What's going on with this busy mind in the cycle of grief? Why is this here? What's its function? And how is it affecting us through the grief cycle?
Yeah, so I think it brings up things that need to be healed. It kind
Hmm.
of works in conjunction with the emotions, and those relentless thoughts are giving us an opportunity to really look at what the thought is, and is that actually true? Is that thought something that is helping us, or is it something that's keeping us from moving forward or healing? And we, you know, it's funny. We long for the person that's gone or the thing that we've lost. And the mind will continue to think about circumstances in the future where that thing or that person won't be there. And it will also go to the past and relive moments with that person and then give us that stark reality that they aren't here anymore. And I guess what I've been able to do is to bring myself to a place of acceptance in what has happened in the past and realizing that I can't change that. And not in a place of sorrow and despair, but in a place of gratitude for having that experience. And then helping the mind to start to focus more on what do I want to take with me moving forward from that experience? Because we're not forgetting about our loved one or the things that we did or the things that we cherish. We're certainly not letting go in that way. We're taking that love and what we learned and what was meaningful for us with us going forward. And that's what brings that fulfillment in, and it fills the gaps or what feels like gaps in our lives.
Hmm. Okay, we got some really good nuggets here. This idea that we can shift our perspective of grief from the pain of the loss to a gratitude and an intentional carrying forward of the thing that we're grateful for, I think is very foreign for a lot of people.
Yeah.
When you're in that cycle of pain and it hurts so much that this loss or separation has occurred, the idea of gratitude and joy can be really far away.
Yeah.
But this is really important, I think. But there was something that happened before that you were saying here. So that busy mind that is reliving all the things that I wish I would have done, or all the things that I could have done better, or all the ways that I didn't show up the way that I wanted to show up.
Hmm.
I'm fixating on all the things that went wrong, and this busy mind is just going in circles, dwelling, ruminating, round and round and round. And you said something important. So if you're listening, the busy mind is a signal to something that was there. Let's go into that for just a moment, and then let's talk about how we can reframe our relationship with the grief. So, the busy mind's dwelling, it's drawing your attention to some emotion or something that's inside of you. What is this, and what do we do with it?
Yeah. Well, there's great messages and insights within each of those things that come up. And I said the thoughts and emotions come together. And quite often, what would happen to me, and I know it happens to a lot of people, is you get this, what we call a grief burst or a sudden feeling of despair, or, you're brought to tears over a memory or something that reminds you of your loved one. And I learned through a lot of help, coaching, to take those circumstances and to really, well, I use the process of writing to help me, but I would write out what had happened, how I was feeling. And as I did that, the mind started to help me process where all this was coming from. So, was it coming from guilt? Was it coming from a feeling of, um, well, I wish that he had been able to enjoy this, and now I could be enjoying my life, but I can't because, there's all of these things that come up, and those are really good little nuggets of information because they point to the pain and where it's coming from. And then that is the place where we can start to work with it a little bit. First of all, acknowledge it. And we have every right to feel all of those feelings. They are not something we should be pushing aside or dismissing in any way, because if we do, they'll continue to come up. But it's like looking at that and saying, okay, is this thought true? Is it helping me in my healing and moving forward? And how do I want to approach this? Um, I think it's really important to do that. And at first, I needed help with that. I couldn't just do that on my own.
Doing that on your own is kind of like the analogy I often use is you're putting together a 10,000 piece puzzle, but you
Yeah,
can only look at it from an inch away from it. You
yeah,
can't see really any of the pieces, let alone the whole picture.
exactly.
Okay. So this idea that the mind is really busy for a reason. And
Mhm,
if we can recognize that and see this process is happening, then we can get very curious about it and we can ask, what is this trying to draw my attention to? Why is my mind getting so busy? What is the purpose here? What is it bringing up for me? And almost always what we find is there is big emotion underneath that.
mhm,
So this idea that the mind and the emotions go hand in hand is that the way our nervous system and our brain is structured is the brain is built layer on top of layer, right? And at the very base of that layer is the emotional center, our intuition, our instinct. And then on the layers above that, we have our prefrontal areas where a lot of our thinking, our symbols, our logical conception comes from. So the emotion almost always precedes the thought.
mhm.
And so, if, for instance, we like to say, I have a scary dream, I'm being chased by a big crab man and he's running around after me and I can't get away from him, we would say that the crab man's chasing me, and so then I'm scared. But it's actually the other way around, isn't it? It's I'm
Mhm.
very scared. I have this big emotion. So my mind is creating the story, the narrative to explain why this emotion's here. And
Yeah.
so if I can recognize this, that I'm dwelling, I'm going in circles, my mind is constantly fixating on this, it's catastrophizing, it's focusing on the most painful things, may or may not be true, but it's doing that for a reason because there's something under here, a big emotion. Now, if I can see that, now I have the ability to work with it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
what do we do with it once we start to see, okay, I'm in this pattern. I got all this big emotion. Something happened here. I should have done this. I could have done that. I didn't show up this way. I hurt this person in this way. They hurt me in this way. All of this is here. What can I start to do with these emotions in order to change the pattern and the relationship of this grief?
Yeah, well, for me, it was really having a lot of compassion for myself going through that. It was looking at myself and my own circumstance and realizing that we always do the best that we can. We don't try to fail, in these circumstances. And oftentimes, just having that compassion and love for yourself and just letting yourself know that it's okay to be in that emotion and that, allowing that emotion to come up and through is what helps to release it. Um, my coach always told me that, these emotions, if we hold them down underneath the water, it's like holding them under the water like a beach ball. And
Is your
you
teacher Gabor?
No, but
Because
she
he uses that
probably
same
got
one.
that from there,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and she said, if you hold them underneath there long enough, they're gonna
They're gonna
bounce up
burst
in
up.
your face. And
Yeah.
I was afraid of emotion because, um, I would hold it so long that when I did finally start to express it or cry, it was like a volcano,
Hmm.
and it was so scary to be in that state that, I didn't wanna go there.
Yeah.
And so I learned over time that it's better to pick up on these things quickly, um, and deal with them
Hmm.
as they come
Yeah.
rather than pushing them away, because I didn't know that you could have a nice little cry. I really didn't,
Hmm.
because everything was a volcano.
This is really important. This is big. I think a lot of people will relate with this. The first part of, can I be kind and compassionate to myself through this, I think is very foreign for a lot of people. In fact, from what I've seen, the vast majority of people, almost everybody that I've worked with, without exception, has been very harsh to themselves.
Yeah.
So when they're having these emotions, they don't know what to do with them. And they might have learned somewhere in their life that having emotions is bad. So when they were a kid, they had emotions and then they got punished for it. Oh, if you're going to act that way, you're going to get a timeout. I'm going to disconnect you and threaten you with the thing that's most important to you until you can learn to suppress those emotions. And then you can come back and be a part of the family. This is highly traumatic for a lot of people. And so they learn that emotions are very bad and they have to suppress them, because if you have emotions, you don't get loved.
Right.
And so here they're feeling all these really big emotions, and then this pattern is so strong. So they beat themselves up over it. I shouldn't have that. I need to go back to work. I need to be able to show up for this person. I got to do these things. And so the idea of being compassionate can be very challenging.
Mhm.
In fact, I always ask them, like, if you had a close friend, somebody I'm working with, I say, if you had a close friend and they were going through this terrible loss, would you tell them they shouldn't feel that way? Would you tell them that they have to suck it up and get going on with their life and just keep carrying on? And they always say, like clockwork, no, of course not. So why do it to yourself?
Mhm.
Well, we learned it somewhere. This is so important because this pattern right here just keeps us in this negative feedback loop, as you're describing. I got the big emotions. I'm not allowed to have the emotions. I beat myself up. It causes more big emotions, and round we go. So the idea of being kind and compassionate is very difficult, very
Yeah,
challenging.
it is.
The second part of suppressing the emotions is crucial. Okay. So this busy mind here is very useful when we have emotions and we don't know what to do with them, because it offers a great distraction. I can think about all the things. So if I have all this pain and all this sadness from losing somebody, I can think about all the things that I did wrong. I can transfer that pain into anger, and I still don't know what to do with that anger. So I push it onto myself. I take it out on myself.
Mhm.
So I think what you brought up here is the crux of this, or the foundation of this defense mechanism of the busy mind, which is, and perhaps this is exactly why grief tends to linger for so long, is I don't know what to do with my emotions.
Yeah.
And when they're here, they overwhelm me. So I don't like it.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I have the emotions, they come up like a volcano. And if they start, they might never stop.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when we suppress our emotions, we put them in a pressure cooker. And every time that we suppress our emotions, we add to it and we turn the heat up a little bit more. And then
Mhm.
eventually it pops and they all come bursting out. And then we gather them all up and we push them back in and we start it all over again. So, as you were saying, it's so much better to work with the emotions as they're here rather than adding them to the pressure cooker so that way they don't explode on us.
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes I think everybody approaches that a little bit differently.
Hmm.
Um, some people can, maybe go for a walk and process some of that. Um, I did a lot of writing. Writing seemed to be the way for me to process, but I also was drawing, I was painting, I would put on music and process some things that way. And I would just allow myself to feel what I was feeling and try not to judge all of it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, the writing, the drawing, the walking, the processing that you're doing here, that sounds a lot like expression as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, in terms of things that we can start to do with this pain, the first thing is we have to start to recognize or identify we're carrying some pain around. And there's lots of signals that are drawing our attention to it, such as the busy mind. When we can start to see there's something here, we have to look at our relationship with it. What are we doing with it? And if we're fighting it, avoiding it, suppressing it, trying to exile it, judging it, criticizing it, beating ourselves up for having it, well, rather than doing all of those things, what we can do is we can start to accept that it's here. Okay, once we can get here, now we can do something with it. And the things that you just gave were fantastic. I can express it and process it through means of writing,
Mhm.
drawing, walking. This is fantastic. What are some other ways that you might see for people to begin to really work with that emotion that's inside of them?
Well, I know that, myself, I did a lot of energy work.
Hmm.
So I follow Donna Eden, and she has a lot of really practical exercises that are easy to do.
Hmm.
Um, Also tapping, EFT. My mother did a lot of EFT, and so she would tap with me. And there's a plethora of YouTube videos on tapping on every emotion that you could imagine. Brad Yates has hundreds of videos on there. And I think that, that physical motion, tapping on those particular points, um, helps to release as well. And I found that really big, probably alongside the writing, just as important for me to do those exercises and do that energy work.
Was the tapping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, the EFT, emotional freedom technique, I found this to be very popular and common. I've had a couple people on already who talk about this as well. What is it specifically that the tapping or the EFT would do that would allow you or enable you, or perhaps those aren't the right words, empower you to start to process, to feel, and of course, process and ultimately soothe the emotions that you were carrying?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to our bodies, a lot
Mhm.
more than maybe we take into account. Um, we're energetic bodies. And um, when Donna Eden talks, she talks about your hands being, almost like magnets, healing. in lots of ways. And so, when you have a headache, you automatically put your hand to your head. Or if you hurt something, you grab it with your hand. There's a reason for that. And I think that, we've kind of lost that a little bit over time. Some of this natural ability for our bodies to be able to heal, we kind of forgot about it. I mean, when you break your leg and the doctor puts a cast on, the doctor doesn't heal it. You do. Your body knows what to do. And I think that these energy exercises, such as EFT and what Donna teaches with the daily energy routine, I think those things are helping us kind of get back to the fact that our body knows what to do. It knows what to do with these emotions. We just have to get ourselves into a space where we can allow it to do what it needs to do. And that's what this EFT does. And that's what these exercises do, is it helps you to kind of calm your nervous system and get yourself into a place where you can naturally be in that healing state again.
Hmm. Yes, you're absolutely right. If you have a wound and you go to a doctor and they clean it and they dress it, they don't heal it. They just
Oh,
create the optimal conditions for your body to heal itself.
yeah,
The wisdom, the knowledge that knows how to heal is inside of us. And yes, our hands can be fantastic tools for healing, and they can also be tools of destruction as well, which I think is
for sure.
one of the areas where people get into that harshness and that blame, that negative feedback loop, where that path of wholeness, that wisdom and intuition had been blocked for whatever
Mhm.
reason. They adapted to trauma early in their life and they suppressed and suppressed and suppressed and then went into the mental world. And they got so disconnected from life that they were going around bringing people into their pain because they don't know what else to do with it. And in that case, your hands can be very dangerous.
Mhm.
But if we could pull those barriers or those blockages or those patterns that are keeping us stuck in there, there's fantastic opportunity here. So it sounds like what you're describing, Angela, is that we have to reconnect with the wisdom, the wholeness that's inside of each and every one of us. And we can do that by overcoming or transcending these blockages and barriers that are stopping us. And the main barrier here is that we have suppressed and buried and stored up a reservoir of emotions, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that, this is at the root of a lot of things that we're having problems with in society.
Hmm.
It's and I think that I believe that right now, with everything going on in the world and people watching that on the news, um, there's more and more people waking up to the fact that this is not good for us.
Hmm.
It's not healthy to be in that state of fear all the time. And yes, that stuff is going on. And I also think that our perspective around it and the way that we approach it, we have full control of that. And so when we're feeling more in control, we have less fear. And I think that this all starts with ourselves.
So you're bringing up something interesting here, which is that these patterns, the ruminating, the circular mind, drawing our attention to the grief, the pain, the sadness, the fear, the anger, all these big emotions that are inside of us that are waiting to be processed. All of this is happening for a reason.
Mhm.
And what it's doing is it's perhaps bringing us back closer to our true nature, which is that we have tremendous potential and we have the power to make choices in our life where we can say, Yeah, I might have been in this pattern before where I was in all this pain. And so, yeah, I love the cheap coffee. And so I was happy that they were putting that right across the street from me by sacrificing all the wilderness that was there.
Mhm.
But that's not good for me. And that temporary relief of that cheap coffee isn't worth all of the destruction that it's going to cause. So now people can become empowered to make choices where they can say, this is good for me, or that is not good for me. In other words, we become very powerful. We can actually start to participate in life rather than just having life happen to us. And we can navigate where we go in life as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, when you look at that with grief, these things happen. We lose things in life, and it's hard, and we still have a choice moving forward. And I think people forget that. We think that we are being life's being unfair to us. We ask why this happened to us. What did we do to deserve this? And that's really not the perspective. The perspective is this happened. This really horrible thing happened to me. How can I move forward now?
Mhm.
What choices do I have moving forward? Because that we can't change the past.
Yeah. But we can change the way that we relate to it.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so this is coming back to our early point of our perspective, our worldview. How do we look at the situation through? And this is a little lens that I'm looking through. That's a gesture I'm doing here. So this
Mhm.
lens is so important because it colors everything that we see. Now, here we have the ability to take this one out and to put something new in. And when we can do that, we can really change the way that we interact with the world. If we're looking at our situation of as if we're looking at the situation as why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? Why are all these bad things happening? Well, we have to ask ourselves what type of person does this make us? If all the bad things are always happening to us and it's why me? Why is this thing happening? That makes us a victim.
Yeah.
And a victim is powerless. A victim is helpless and is always waiting for somebody to come and rescue them and save them. But if we can change that perspective, take out the victim lens and put in a new lens, well, we can become very powerful and we can become the person that's going to save us. And we can say, okay, yes, these things happened. Yes, they might have been less than ideal, but I can learn from them. And I can take those lessons and apply them to life going forward. I might not be able to change the thing that happened, but I can change my relationship with it. I can see it as a lesson. I can see it as a teaching, and I can make adjustments in how I live my life so those dynamics don't replay again.
Mhm.
By doing that, I think that you really do change the past in a way. Like, I mean, tell me what you think about this, Angela. Let's say, for instance, you have, I don't know, a parent or a child. Let's say you're a mother and you have a child and you never once showed up for your child. Not you. This is the hypothetical you.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you never showed up for them. And so this was obviously very painful. And so then you create this mental world that you actually did show up and you were there. It was just your kid didn't like you. And then he left at age 12 or so on. And it's his fault. And actually, you're the victim here because he hurt you, if anything. Let's say we do this and we say, okay, hold on, what was my role? What was my responsibility? And what can I do here? And then you start to say, I didn't show up. I can see the truth. I accept it. I start to show up and I'm going to show up for myself. I'm going to try and be present. I'm going to make sure that those things don't happen anymore. The relationship in the past is unchanged. Those dynamics are still there, but it does open up a whole new range of new possibilities to where that relationship can change, whether your kid's alive or not. If they passed, sometime years ago or whatever, or you don't have the ability to revitalize that relationship, perhaps maybe this can change still. So just by really accepting, recognizing, identifying the pattern that's here, and then accepting it and making choices, perhaps we can really start to change. I don't think that the past literally changes, but our experience of the past can absolutely change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is what I talk about a lot about grief being a um well, it's a transformation process. And over the 200 and some interviews that I've done with people who have lost a loved one, um, so many. I mean, I only interview people who can um, show that inspiration or hope on the other side of loss. And they've proved time and time again that there is an opportunity here for growth and not to just survive the loss, but to actually thrive because of it. And so that growth opportunity is there. Um, it's not easy. I won't say that it's, just a walk in the park, but it's a choice, that we make. And once you step down that road and, like you say, put on that different lens, life just becomes more colorful, more vibrant, more um, peaceful in that space. And even though we've gone through this traumatic time, um, we're able to look at it through that other lens and approach life in a completely different way and feel alive again.
Yes. Grief being an invitation to grow.
Mhm.
Yeah. The grief is like that constant. It's constantly poking at you, grabbing your attention, and it might subside and then it might come in big waves as we discussed, and each one of these is an invitation
Mhm.
from life saying, here's an opportunity to heal this pain and to grow into a more whole or authentic version of yourself. And if you can listen to that signal, then you start to engage with life and you start to see all the ranges of colors and feelings and emotions and wonderful things that are out there.
Yeah.
That's the reframing that we've been talking about right there is this thing happening to me? Am I being punished? Is this some sort of inevitable suffering? Or is this a challenging and stressful and difficult opportunity, but an opportunity nonetheless to grow? Is this a transformation in the way I engage with and participate in life?
Yeah. And I think getting curious about how that looks for you is really the first step.
Yeah.
Just wondering how that might look for me because everybody's journey is different and
Hmm.
we all have our own innate um, things that bring us joy. And sometimes we lose that. We lose that in life. We're trying to make money, get the car, get the house, the life. And we forget that when we were little, we had these innate desires to do things. Some of us like to dance, some of us like to draw, some of us, there was always something that we were interested in, and maybe we left it to the side and we went ahead with what we were doing. And what I find is a lot of people who go through this process rediscover some of these things that they forgot brought them so much joy. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is to see someone pick that back up and find so much joy in it.
Yeah. Priorities.
Mhm.
So many of us as children, as I kind of talked about a little bit earlier, had to make priorities as children. What's important here? Is my emotional health important, or is my relationship with my parents important? Because if my emotions threaten my relationship, then I have to choose.
Right.
And so we start to suppress all of those childlike wonders that we have, and we lose very big parts of who we are. And then, of course, we need to survive. We got to play all the games of society, and we're in all this pain. So then we want to go buy stuff. We want to have the nice house, the nice car, the nice clothes. And so, really asking ourselves what is important in life right now, and making choices, exercising our ability to make choices, because this is not an easy thing to just start doing. It's a practice we have to exercise,
Mhm.
making choices, being at peace and looking at situations. This is what we can practice. If we can choose to engage with life in an authentic way, from my experience, there is no grief.
Mhm.
Like I said earlier, 2 months ago now, my most cherished, precious connection in my entire life passed, and I still feel the pain. I still feel it. Even when I'm telling you this here, you can probably hear it in my voice. I can feel the emotion coming through right away. It's still painful not having her physically here.
Yeah.
But for the last 16 and a half years, I asked myself almost every moment of the day, how can I be the best version of myself for this person right here?
Mhm.
And this person was my dog.
Yeah.
I wanted to show up as best I could for her. And it was really interesting dynamic, because the more that I would show up for her, the more I was becoming in line with what I really needed in life. So everything that I did for her was always good for me too. So whenever I was just lost and I just didn't know what to do, I just look at her and say, what do I need to do right now? And she says, we need to go for a walk. Let's go to the park. And I would feel so much better. It was just great. So every day I was showing up for her. I did everything I could. Highest priority in my life was always to be the best version of myself for her. And then when she passes, yes, there's terrible pain of the separation,
Mhm. Yes.
but the regret, the shame, the anger, the fear, all of those things were not there. And my ability to work with that pain was really strong. I can really see that it's not this terrible curse of life. Rather, it's the proof, or um the tangible thing from a very, very powerful relationship.
Mhm.
And I mean, joy and sadness are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. So the extent of how happy I was in that relationship, of course I'm going to feel the pain when that relationship transforms. And it's just a constant invitation to keep participating.
Mhm.
So if we can do this, yeah, just like you were talking about, if we can keep making choices to engage with life, what I found is that the entire process of grief itself actually transforms. And it's not so big, scary, or overwhelming anymore.
Yeah, it's fascinating you talk about that because it brings up for me, my relationship with my husband. He was very much a social person. He loved to visit with people and get their stories, and I was very much an introvert, still am naturally. And yet, um, when he passed and I started to write and I would share my blog posts and people would resonate with what I was writing, it took me to another space. It started to help me recognize how important our stories are. And now, what I do I'm interviewing people, I'm on these podcasts, and I'm sharing my story, and I'm helping others share their stories. And I think about him and how he would be so enthralled, and is, I believe, so enthralled with what I'm doing. And I never would have saw myself doing something like this before that. So there is something that opened up inside of me that helped me recognize something that I didn't before. This piece of storytelling and compassion and learning from each other and holding each other in these spaces was something that I didn't have the capacity to even remotely understand before the loss. And so I see it as a gift. I really do. Um, would I take my husband back? Yes, in a heartbeat, I would take him back. And at the same time, I recognize the growth that's happened through this and how much joy this is bringing me and him at this time.
Yeah. It's kind of like the leaf of a tree pours everything that that leaf has into the tree. And when the leaf withers and falls to the ground and dies, the existence of that leaf is still inside the tree.
Yeah.
Or when a storm rolls through a forest, that storm goes into the tree and you can see it in the rings of the tree. It shapes who that tree has become. And just like with our most important relationships, and I would argue probably any relationship does this to some extent, but especially ones like your husband or my dog, is they're kind of like leaves in a sense to our tree, and vice versa. We do the same things for them. And so after we've separated, they're no longer here. Their existence is still inside of us. And so that might show up as now I'm doing things that I wouldn't have done otherwise.
Hmm.
And it brings me a great deal of joy. And it, of course, makes them happy too.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I wouldn't go out and engage with many people, really, ever. I called it being introverted, but really I was just scared. I was scared of everybody and everything.
Hmm.
And so I never really wanted to go out and engage with people, but my dog really did. She was very social. And she would always say, "Hey, let's go over to my friend's house." She had friends. And I was actually terrified of these people, to be honest. We've become good friends over the years because she would walk over to their house every day. And not just walk by their house, we have to go up to their porch and knock on the door and see if they're there. But they traveled a lot, so they were hardly ever home. So I got lucky with that. But yeah, my dog Layla, she really brought connections into my life that I would not have made otherwise.
Mm.
And where it's really interesting is that enabled me to engage with other people now that she's passed. So I've made a new friend, for instance, that is really helping me open up to an area of life that I've always wanted to do, which is work with horses. And
Mm.
this person scares me a lot too.
Yeah.
Terrifying, but I'm able to engage with her and connect with her and see why she scares me and see those dynamics because my dog taught me how to go and connect with people. Oh, that doesn't matter. Let's just be friends. That's what she would always say. Oh, it doesn't matter. Just be friends. Let's just be
Yeah.
nice. And I can see her being so happy with me going and doing these things. I can feel her like she's still like I always saw she was a part of me. And it sounds like the exact same thing that you're describing with your relationship with your husband is we take in parts of them into ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. We absolutely do. Yeah, and I'm so grateful for that relationship moving forward. I think that, there's been lots of signs and synchronicities that have helped me realize he's always here and there's a lot of encouragement and help and support that's still happening. It's still ongoing as I continue along my new chapter, I will say, in life, and, yeah, there's so much gratitude for that, and I think, you know, that's another thing I wanna talk about a little bit is that whole gratitude piece because, the whole time while he was sick, going through the cancer treatments, for that 10 months, I picked up a journal and I started to write 3 things I was grateful for every night. And at some point, the brain started to find things to be grateful for. It was just that constant repetition, and in this particular journal, it also asked for one thing I did that was kind that day. And I started to pay attention to what I was doing during the day to make sure that I had something kind to write in my journal at night. And it was interesting because it really had me focusing on what I was grateful for. And I found out that the theme of those things that I was grateful for was usually a connection of some type. It was either a family connection or a friend connection, or it was something um, that was at the forefront of my gratitude. And so I think that just helped me um, with this connection with Blaine now going forward. Even though it's very different, I'm still very grateful for this new connection that I have with him, this new relationship that I have with him going forward.
That's so important, Angela. So back in, what was it, 2017, 2018, my partner had cancer as well, and she ended up dying.
Mm,
And I sat in the infusion rooms and all the different hospital rooms so frequently, multiple times a week with her. And it was very similar, where we were having this very tender, gentle, intimate connection in this room with all this stuff going on that was devastating to so many people. And what I started to see was the situation, like cancer was like the room that you're in. It's the wallpaper on the room. It's coloring, it's shaping the room that you're in. And you can still have such wonderful experiences inside that room.
mhm,
Um, that's really important right there, is the connection. How, despite the circumstances, despite the things that are happening, how can I still connect and engage and interact in a way that I'm happy about and that I look back with tenderness and gentleness and fondness rather than, God, when I worked in the hospital unit, the majority of what I would do was work with families who were losing somebody, and they would just be riddled with conflict. They'd be fighting with each other at each other's throats, and I'd have to grab them and look them in the eyes and say, "Hey, your mom's dying, or your son's dying, or your brother's dying. Do you really want your last few moments to be filled with conflict like this?
mhm,
Let's let that go for a little bit, and let's go in there and enjoy the last few moments or few days or weeks that we have together." And I would just help them through that. And when we could do that, then my dog Layla would go and help too. That was her job, and she could go in and transform that energy so quickly.
yeah,
But yeah, that's what we
yeah,
can do right there. Is, again, the lens. Everything's going wrong. Everything's happening to me. I'm in such a bad spot. Why me? Why is this happening? We can just take that out and say, okay, this is happening and I can't do a damn thing about it, but
mm,
I can choose how I'm going to interact with it. And then I can take a different lens and put it in and say, what can I be grateful of? How can I be a source of peace and joy and connection through a turbulent, difficult time? Because those times will pass, but the actions are what's going to linger.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think, that's one of the regrets maybe people have, and I know certainly it was for me. When he was sick, I felt like, I spent a lot of time, in fear,
Hmm.
and, I didn't know, I think the way I handled it was I just got really busy. I was
Hmm.
busy getting his medications together. I was busy making sure, well, we moved in that process. And so, I was making sure the house was all set up and all that kind of thing, which was a good distraction in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I think sitting with someone, holding their hand, looking into their eyes, and just really being with them in those moments is what you'll look back on fondly.
Yeah. Yeah, the getting busy, that's the same as the busy mind right there. Whether we're
Yeah,
thinking about all the things or doing the things, it distracts us. It takes us away from the big overwhelming emotion, the fear.
yeah,
And yeah, you just gave an incredible alternative where if we're in these situations and we are overwhelmed with the pain or the fear, the anger of why is this happening to me? Yeah, instead of disconnecting from it, we can say, okay, yeah, this is here. And it can be good to step away, absolutely, and take a moment or take your time to care for yourself, but also, yeah, just like you said, the tenderness of just sitting there and
mhm,
just being with them. Yeah, when my dog was, 16 and a half, she was still in great shape. The day that she passed, that night, she was getting her toy still, played with her toy multiple times a day, was bringing it over.
mhm,
We were still engaging. And there were a lot of times where she slept a lot more because she was so much older. She didn't want to go on walks anymore. She didn't
yeah,
really want to leave the house anymore. Um, so we have to find new ways to interact.
yeah,
And so we would come up with new games and new toys and new ways to play and interact with each other. And yeah, it was scary, especially when she started having some health concerns. It was terrifying. But yeah, those moments of just saying, I'm just going to be here. And yeah, the room that we're in is one of illness and death and transformation, and it's scary and it's painful, but that's where we're at. And I'm going to be with you through all of that.
mhm,
Oh, wow. We become so powerful in those moments.
absolutely. Yeah,
I really look back and fondly on those moments too. Those are some of the most important ones is just sitting there and just being together.
mhm, yeah, yeah. And it does bring back to a memory, before my husband passed away, our dog got sick as well, and we ended up, the vet helped us make the choice that we had to let her go, and I remember sitting with her and just in that moment, really feeling all the emotion of letting her go because 'cause we'd had her for 15 years too. It was, similar to your dog, and she had lived on the ranch with us, and we had moved to town now, and it was very different life for her. Um, but I think that she taught me a lot, even in that small moment of just holding her, um, of how we can allow that emotion and that we can be in that moment and that it's okay. It won't kill us, you know? In fact, it becomes something beautiful when you can allow it to be that.
Yeah. Yeah, Joseph Campbell would often say that the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek.
Yeah.
And these situations can be so scary and so devastating. And there's such a rich treasure that you can't find anywhere else inside of it if you can go into it and if you can soften and just be in there.
Mhm.
There's really incredible moments. And I mean, when my dog passed, she passed in my arms, and she had a natural death, which I was very happy about. My other dog, we had to do the same thing. We had to make the decision, and the vet came to our house, and he passed in my arms too. But yeah, she was happy, and she died. It did take a little bit of time, which was stressful. But when we see her face throughout it, she was happy,
Mhm.
she was at peace. And it was, I think, largely because I was right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's beautiful.
Yeah. I think that's the key right there is we can't avoid the difficulties, the pains, the stresses, and the challenges of life. Life is inevitably going to have hardships and loss at every turn. That
Mhm.
seems to be the price of admission for life is you have to lose it at some point.
Yeah.
And so we can't stop that, but we can learn how to navigate it. We can learn how to go through it. And if we do that, a whole new range of possibilities opens up.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, you know, it seems like in my little world that I was in, when he passed away, I didn't know that there was an opportunity to grow through this experience. I just knew that, somehow I had to survive it, and I kinda thought if I just went in my room and cried for a while, it might get better, but it was really quickly when I decided it wasn't getting better, and I'm so glad I reached out because had I not done that, I can't imagine where I would be right now. Um, and I think, part of it was my upbringing and my career. I have 2 master's degrees in education, so naturally I would go out seeking research or trying to find answers. Um, and I think that that's really important to be curious about how you can move forward and have a life that you love again because you can. It's just finding your way through that, and there's a lot of people out there, way more than I could have ever imagined, that have gone through this process and have grown and are thriving, actually.
Yeah,
So it is possible.
it is. Yeah. I think a lot of us develop these beliefs, and I think these beliefs come from very similar areas that I was talking about earlier, like in childhood, where you have to suppress your emotions to maintain your connections. One of the beliefs that we tend to develop is I have to be strong, independent, and do everything on my own.
Yes.
And that's not true.
No. In fact, I will say now that it's a detriment.
Hmm.
If you aren't involving someone else in some way to help support you, you're really, first of all, not allowing them the opportunity to help you. If you think about, you if you help someone else, how good does that make you feel? And if you allow someone to do that for you, you're doing that for them too.
Hmm.
It's not just being selfish or, being weak. We think that it's being weak to have someone else have to come and help us. I still have that a little bit in my system. I mean, I catch myself, people offering help and then me going, "Oh no, it's okay. I can do it myself," right?
Hmm.
But just allowing people to help you, um, it just makes everything better all the way around. It just does. And until we actually experience that and try that, I think we just don't understand it. And I know someone had given me an exercise. They said for the next 2 weeks, when somebody offers something, you say yes. You have no choice. You're going to say yes to whatever kind of help that someone offers. And it was hard for me. And it was hard for me to reach out and ask for help too.
Yes. We're not meant to live in isolation.
No.
But yeah, I would do the exact same thing. I would close up and burrow up into a room or into my house. And it was like my own little den that I'd go into a little safe spot. And I see why I do that. It helped me at one point in my life, but it became just detrimental to me throughout a lot of my later years in my life. So
Yeah.
yeah, really learning how to come outside of that shell, open up a little bit, and we can all, I think a lot of people want to give to other people, but can you receive?
Mhm.
Can you say yes? Or can you even go one step further and ask for help?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important, and that's one of the things that I think, maybe stops people from healing,
Hmm.
is that whole feeling that they can do it on their own, or maybe they think that there's nothing anyone can say or do because they can't change the situation. I know I thought that too. What can a counselor or a therapist say to me? My husband's still gone. How can I ever feel better
Yeah,
about that? Right? I had that kind of mentality, but I had to let that go
sure.
and realize that, yes, a grief coach is somebody who can help you feel better.
Hmm.
Believe it or not, they actually can.
Yeah. And, again, when we're going through it, it's like looking at that giant puzzle, but from an inch away, is it's so difficult to see the pieces that are in there. So to work with somebody, if it's after the fact, after the passing, the loss, to get help then is fantastic. And if you're in it right now, you don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah,
You can get some help and support, and that can help you be more flexible and have a larger range of motion in terms of how you go through the very difficult situation. That can change the whole process of grief right there, is just having some good support. Now, there's a lot of people who I wouldn't say yes to in terms of support. There can be lots of bad advice out there, and it can be very
true.
detrimental in lots of ways. But there are so many good people out there, and I've had so many on this show already who have such good resources and ability to help people. So, yeah, I think that's what I would like to encourage anybody who's going through any kind of grief, pain, loss. And it can be of so many things. It could be, I'm working with somebody right now who's grieving. I spend all my energy at work. And even when I'm not at work, I'm thinking about it and it's consuming me and I can't be there for other people in my life. And there's a grief there, there's a loss. And in a very short period of time, he's able to transform all of that. So, yeah, having somebody there with you to go through it is crucial. We're allowed to have help and we're entitled to ask for it too. And there's lots of good help out there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Angela, we're coming up on time here. I'm curious, is there anything that you would want to leave guests with who have listened to us this far?
Well, I think, I've hit it home a few times now that, you know, a loss isn't a death sentence. It's not, uh, my life is changed and it's over and it'll never be joyful again. It'll never be fulfilling again. It'll never be happy again. I just want people to know that that isn't how it has to be. You actually can heal and you can come out on the other side of that, not just surviving, but thriving and seeing life in a whole new perspective. And so I just keep wanting to give people hope that, yes, there's some dark days, especially when you've lost someone really close to you or a pet, like you say. And yet we can move through that. And it's okay. We're going to be okay in the end.
Yeah. It's almost like that's the actual nature, the natural path of loss is to integrate, to take those dynamics that were left from the person that has passed and to apply it to our lives, like you doing your shows or me going out and interacting with people
Mhm.
that I normally wouldn't. Yeah, that's a way of really honoring that connection and cherishing it and applying it into our life. And then yeah, physically they're not here, but yeah, we still carry them on with us.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Angela. It's been so lovely chatting with you about this. I'm really glad that we got to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Where can people find you?
Healingenergy.world. That is my website, and everything is there. The blog posts, the podcast, the opportunity to work with me, um, and, reach out anytime. If you have questions, I'm I'm always available by email, and I like to talk about grief. Not many people do, but I do. I like to talk to people about it because I think that, we all have grief. We all have things that we've lost, and this process of grief is really not something to look at and avoid or try to push away. It really is a process of healing, and we want healing. And so embracing grief as a way of transforming your life really is um, what I'm all about.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.